I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
So today we got an exciting one. This guy came in on his hoverboard today. He was a recent site Q at the district. And one of my favorite memories was how he convinced, I think, the most number of guys we had to show up to a book study called Every Man's Battle. And I was just amazed at his leadership there. But we've got, oh, and I forgot, he's also the only other guy in F3 Omaha where we enunciate the I in his name during Name-A-Rama. So, Pitch and Biff. So we've got Biff on the call today. Biff, it's good to see you, man. Where we tend to start off is just, how'd you get your name? What was the first workout like? Who EH'd you? That sort of stuff. So if you don't mind, share your experience there.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. No, I'm a regular Gloom podcast listener. I might be a couple episodes behind right now, but I've caught the majority of them. It's a good listen. Always good to hear everybody's stories and how they showed up, and then what keeps them there, and all the above. Everybody's story is so unique. So let's see. We'll start with, I guess, Sean Howell, Biff, just to get started. EH. So I think it's interesting. Merch gets the EH credit, and he'll say that it's all him. But the reality, in my mind, is that my sister EH'd me. So Merch worked with my sister at UNMC, and she had heard about it, I think not just from him, but from Wait Time. They crossed paths. She crossed paths with Selleck. And so she actually told me about it first and said she'd heard about this workout group, and I had been working out very regularly and had started getting into running. And so this would have been January, February of 2020. Said, hey, David would be reaching out to me to, talk to me about it. So he messaged me, and probably I was pretty much ready to go, like thinking, oh, this sounds fun. I'm running. He first introduced me or brought up Paradise, and like, oh, this sounds like something that I could do. I could get some running in during the week. And so after about a month of work getting in the way, I show up at Paradise, and probably the end of, I don't remember the exact date, end of February 2020. And Tater is on the queue. And so we proceed to do what I was told in the middle of the workout was not at all a typical Paradise workout. Like, it was not the route around the lake. We went up into Regency neighborhood and did some, maybe, I think it was like a mini grinder in the park, ran around the park, and then took a shortcut, air quotes, back down to the mall, cutting through some of the neighborhood, which I've introduced people to that route a couple times, because there's a few routes, a few kind of hidden stairs and hidden paths to get up through the neighborhood. So that was the EH first workout name. So we get to Name-A-Rama, and I try to lead with some things like I'm a Christian, I'm a family man, and then somebody asks what I do for work, and so I say I'm an electrical engineer. And I don't know who yelled it, but somebody just immediately yelled out 1.21 gigawatts. And so after that, the naming just spiraled down the Back to the Future rabbit hole. And there was already a McFly, there was already a Doc Brown. And so after somebody said Biff, and finally Tater, just cocks his head, looks to me and goes, Biff.
That's
like
awesome.
only he can do.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's where the name came from. Side note on that, I actually really like my name. Not that I like the character per se, but the movie Back to the Future holds a special place for me and my family. I grew up in a small town, and we lived out in the country, but we had one of those big satellite dishes, 8-foot satellite dish. And one year we had HBO, and on those big satellite dishes, you had HBO East and HBO West. And so they showed the same thing, but targeted for East Coast or West Coast time zones. So one particular Christmas, we watched the original Back to the Future at least 4 times.
Nice.
Like starting in the morning on East, and then going to West, and then by the time that was done, it was back again on East.
That's awesome.
Enjoy all those movies, and have seen them all many times.
Yeah, I love that. And it is a cool name, I think. And you've been able to tell me about the long eye. What started that? Just kind of messing with slow pitch or what?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Just slow pitch. He didn't always. So I look back, I don't know when he started doing that, but he started doing his long slow pitch. And one day, he was cueing, and just for giggles, I just added my name into the mix, and gave it the long eye on the Biff, and decided I'll keep doing it whenever he's cueing. I started doing it when Tater cues as well.
Yeah.
Except for the last time. The last time slow pitch cued, I was gassed and completely forgot, and he was left hanging. He was waiting for the long drawn out name, and I let him down. So I'll make it up next time.
One of these times we got to just all do it. The next time he cues, if there
that is my goal. That would be hilarious.
Maybe on his
everybody. Yeah, everybody do that.
So it sounded like you were already running, right? Or get into fitness before. What was that first workout hard or comparable to what you were doing on your own, or how would you describe that from a fitness standpoint?
From a fitness standpoint, it was not super difficult. The first workout, and I will preface that, like, I had been running. I had gotten into some running shape in the fall to do. So the same sister that Merch knew, she challenged all of her family to run a 5K at Thanksgiving. And I had never been a runner, but I decided I had lost some weight, mostly weightlifting and dieting, that, well, maybe I'll try running. So I did a couch to 5K program. And we get to Thanksgiving, and that 5K was actually more like a 4-mile run, but I did it okay, and beat the time that I expected. So then she's like, why don't you do the early bird run? So the early bird is a 10-mile run, which is in early April. So I had started training for that probably in January. So it wasn't uncommon to run 3, 4, 5 miles by the time I got to that first Paradise workout. I will say the workout the next week was one Sir Plague leading, who took us on Burpee Island. And the burpees ratcheted up the workout to an area that I had not been prepared for.
Yeah.
The running wasn't a problem, but I had not done burpees. I'm pretty sure that was a 120 burpee day.
Yeah.
Every stop was 20 plus burpees.
Yeah. Yeah, those are fun. They haven't asked me back. I don't know. Icy Hot hasn't asked me to do. I don't know why. But no,
Yeah.
yeah. What? Well, that's good, right? I mean, I think So initially, you weren't intimidated or kind of
Yeah.
drawn back from the fitness aspect, which I think is great. So then you kept coming back. Did you notice anything just different about this group of guys than maybe other groups or other men you had encountered up to this point?
So yes, in that it was really consistent. So that first month, I really just went to Paradise. I went every Wednesday because I had been consistently going to the gym. I would go in the mornings and lift weights, and had started, like I said, doing running. And so Paradise fit that mold. Well, what happens in March of 2020? I don't think I went to any workout besides Paradise for that 4 weeks. And then I was at Paradise on March 17th or March 18th. March 18th. It was my wife's birthday, and it was Roadhouse's VQ.
Oh.
And it's one of the most memorable workouts I've ever had for multiple reasons. I've heard other people on the Gloom here talk about how emotional it was for them. I was oblivious to that. I mean, I knew stuff was changing. COVID was starting to do some things, and I was probably going to have to start working from home. But I didn't know at that time that was the last F3 workout in Omaha for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
But the beatdown itself was completely memorable because it was raining the whole time.
No.
We did Turkish get-ups and puddles up in the up at the park in Regency. We ended by doing Mary in the middle of the street while water is just pouring down the road. I mean, just running over my shoulders. Everybody was just completely soaked, and so that was a fun, very memorable workout. Let's see, where were we going with that?
No, you're good. It's interesting, right? Because I think you come into this group and you see the relationships that the guys have. Some people have commented like it seems like we're there's like a lot of us are best friends, right? But ultimately we work out in the mornings and we support each other. We got each other's backs, and we're out there in the gloom. But I think I've heard a few guys say they came in and they just the COTs or vulnerability, some of the things that they heard from guys struck them as like there's something different here in this group. And a lot of times, hopefully that leads to some second F opportunities where you get to spend time, sharing your story and get to know other guys and maybe eventually form a shield lock. But with the pandemic hitting so close to when you started, were you able to, I know there were kind of some maybe underground workouts or just some smaller groups getting together. Were you able to connect with any guys there throughout the pandemic and just stay in touch, or what was your experience?
Yeah. So let me roll back just a little bit. I got myself sidetracked. My whole story is that I've been very, very heavy in my past. Like I've lost 130 pounds or so multiple times in my life, actually. This is the longest I've kept it off. But when I really started on this last train of losing weight, and it was because I was working out. I got to the realization that the only time that I have for me or for working out is in the morning. So I had to breach that gap first. And so I partnered with a guy here at work and another friend of ours to kind of start meeting up and lifting weights in the morning. He already was established as far as lifting weights. Mornings were a little tougher for him. And so just that accountability, like to be honest, if he listens to it, Nickelback, he only would show up like twice a week. But that was enough for me to show up 5 days a week. Just knowing that he or fish oil might be there that I went there, and whether they made it that day or not, I got a workout in. And so I guess that probably cemented that I need that shared accountability, even if it's not every day, it's consistent. So I really did appreciate that part of F3, that whether somebody's going to be there and you get a workout and you get the second F with a little bit of the social. And so I did enjoy that right away. Now, pandemic time, I had just started, so I didn't have really any other connections in the group except for merch. And we happen to live 2 doors apart. And so Merch and I got into a pretty decent routine of working out probably 3 days a week. He introduced me to doing the Murph. So my first 2 months of Murph was using the playset in his backyard.
Nice.
But that really was what cemented it for me, was that continued workout, getting on Slack, seeing on your own but not alone workouts posted. So I would do those on my own. Obviously the gym's closed, and so there was no going there. And I never went back to the gym, maybe less than a handful of times in the year plus that I still maintained my membership before I canceled it. Nice.
Well, and I guess I didn't realize that about your story, just the multiple attempts. So kind of the Pogo 40 example from free to lead. So that's pretty impressive, and kudos for sticking with it. I think, and I don't know if you have read Free to Lead or got to do Q Source or maybe did Queen Service or not, but I think, I don't know, I would be curious your thoughts on any of those resources, because I think a lot of guys have found some of those tools helpful too as second F vehicles. But have you read those books, or did you get to do a Queen Service challenge at all?
Yep, all the above. I have participated in all of them. Read Free to Lead, and definitely connected with the Pogo 40. That's been my life for 20 plus years, of series of mostly just dieting, losing the weight, and then gaining it back plus some. I've had a couple of the extreme versions, but maybe more like Pogo 90. But none of them, they were always single track, in that I was either working out or watching my diet. And it wasn't until I did combine the two that I've lost it, and I mean, for the most part, maintained it. I've gained a little bit back, but I'm still well below any previous low.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, it's interesting, right? Because we all need that accountability for different things, and within the group, you've got opportunities to engage with other guys that are pursuing similar goals. And I know I have not participated in Queen Service, but have just been inspired by the kind of this informal shield lock that's formed by the guys that have done it. And I don't know, what was that like for you when you participated in the challenge?
Yeah, it's another accountability step. Now, I did not join this last time, but I like what I still am on the channel on Slack, and I like what they've done, where they've actually assigned people to, I don't know, remember what they called them, pods. And so they did actually force the accountability a little bit, having groups of 2 or 3 guys checking in on each other instead of leaving it up to each of us to do that on our own. So for me, that was probably missing from the previous Queen Service ones, where there was the group challenge, but I probably needed a little more personalized discussion. Yeah. And so I like what they did there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good idea. It's been cool just to see the different iterations and giving guys opportunity to lead kind of with their own flavor. I think something else that I have just always admired about you as I've interacted with you is, and you mentioned kind of at the start, your faith. And I think that is a big part of who you are. I also noticed that you, at least from what I have seen, are a really good example of a good husband and a good father. I think I see, just things that you do with your family. And I think that Concentrica, you really try to live that out. Was the Concentrica something that you kind of already had an idea of prioritizing life in that way, or was that a new concept for you, or what, tell me about that.
Yeah, I would say not a new concept, but I feel like I continually have to be reminded and sharpened when it comes to that. So I think that Concentrica model really, really helps to focus it. I'm not the best at writing things down, and if I go through that and somebody kind of forces us, like if it was in a Q source and everybody say bring a piece of paper and like, all right, let's draw out the 8 block, or let's draw the Concentrica, now fill it out. I'm much more likely to participate than just reading it and doing that on my own. But I don't know, what popped into my head is when we first had kids, so my oldest is now 14, and I think this probably happens to a lot of parents, or working parents particularly. You have your first kid and you go back to work, and maybe you dropped them off at daycare at 7:30 and you picked them up from daycare at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then you put them to bed at 6 or 7. And then you're like, wait, I only saw this human for like an hour today.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the first inkling of, wow, you have to be specific. You've got to take some time and prioritize things, because life happens pretty quick. And even if you're just working 8 to 5, that takes up most of your day. So how much is left for your kids? How much is left for your wife, etc. And I'd say it just has changed over the years in importance, not importance, on just the peaks and valleys on what's happening in life. How active are the kids? How active is the wife's calendar? How active is my calendar? And each season you go, and seasons can be a couple times a year. You try to put what's important first. So for me, I really focus on having dinner with the family. We try to do that as often as we can.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice is the kids are old enough now to make dinner. So we got maybe two times a week they make dinner. I also have always taken the Saturday morning approach, in that, so you don't often see me on a Saturday morning, because I really like to reserve that as I make breakfast. So I'm in charge on Saturday morning, and try to have if we don't have anything going on, then I'm probably making pancakes and eggs for the family, and we're having sit down breakfast on Saturday morning. And this is a time that I really enjoy and look forward to.
Yeah, I started doing that recently too, and I miss posting, but it does. I don't know, it just creates that space. I think my 6-year-old really looks forward to that, and it's been fun, right? Because at her age, I can kind of get her to start helping a little bit, and it created a space that we didn't have before. It's interesting because you mentioned the kind of the routine, right? It leaves you with just a few hours a day. Some of those folks that are kind of at the center of your Concentrica. So I love that idea. I want to get your thoughts too on faith. I mean, I've had the opportunity just to be next to you during several different book studies on either Tuesdays or Thursday mornings, and just hear your thoughts there. But what's been your faith journey just over the last few years? Has F3 enhanced that, or give you a new perspective?
Yeah, F3 has enhanced it. My my overall faith journey sums up in that I was raised with kind of a split family. My mom took us to an Assemblies of God church. My dad went to a Lutheran church. We went with him on Christmas and Easter, but we did grow up in a pretty faith-based family led by my mom. Fast forward to college, and I did college things that were not faith-based. And then when my wife and I got married, and neither one of us were really following Christian faith at the time, but we both had, it was both in our past, and both knew that it was important to us. So then our oldest daughter was born. My mom wanted her to get baptized, and we said, okay, we'll do that for you. Well, that started us going back to church, and we've been going ever since. And then just going back to church, meeting other Christians, improved our faith. We kind of just kept, God kept chipping away at our hearts, and then our faith has just blossomed since then. Fast forwarding to F3, I really appreciate the variety of folks. Like, on one hand, you want to be around like-minded people, like-faithed people to build you up. But at the same time, you have to be around non-like-minded or like-faith people to challenge you, because you got to answer some of those tough questions yourself, and you may not ask those. You may not get asked that by someone who has the same faith perspective as you.
Yeah.
So that definitely has enhanced it. Our book studies every Thursday morning at the battlefield. I'll put the plug in there. They offer a good space for that too. You have some like faith and like-minded folks, but then we've had some people challenge and ask some tougher questions, and that provides a good chance to have a discussion.
Yeah. Well, and you had led, the Everyman's Battle, right? Was kind of your, the idea, or the book idea was yours. And I remember showing up, we had maybe 4 to 5 guys, maybe 6, but I feel like I showed up one day, like the first day of that book study, and we had 14 guys or something there. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And you start digging into the subject matter of that book, and it truly is Everyman's Battle, but I think, I don't know, curious from your perspective, how did that go, or what are your thoughts on why that had such a large following, or what was your perspective during that time?
Yeah, so this is the PG rated, PG-13 rated.
Sure.
But I'm okay to talk about it. If you're not familiar, Everyman's Battle is a book about men dealing with pornography and lust and everything associated with it. And so I've struggled with that throughout my life, from being a kid and finding a box of Playboys and penthouses, and leading to just whatever you can find on the internet. It's really easy to get, but it was always shameful. I would always look at pornography, and then I'd be ashamed, and then I would repent, and then I would go do it again the next day. And a couple years ago, somebody introduced me to the Everyman's Battle book, and I'm a big audiobook guy, or at least I was pre-pandemic. Now I don't go to the gym on my own, so I don't have as much time to listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
But I listened to it once and was really impressed with it. And really, it didn't change anything, though. It didn't change me. Probably a year or two later, I was like, all right, I like what it said. I'm going to read it again or listen to it again. And the second time it stuck, like it got me. The little ways, I'll just call them tips and tricks on how to kind of control your mind. You start by controlling your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Control your mind a little bit. And so once it worked for me, I kind of used some various opportunities to try to share that with others in hopes that it would work for them and that they would at least be able to have that conversation that pornography is a struggle that a lot of men have, and it affects their relationships with, I can guarantee you it affects my relationship to this day with my wife, with my family, with my daughters, that I have to be aware at all times of how susceptible I was, and to not fall into that trap again. So with the book study, yeah, we had 12 to 14. I think just right away, people found out what it was, and they know that it's a struggle, and that they're all dealing with it, because it's not called some men's battle.
Yeah.
It is called every man's battle. And whether you're fighting that battle or not, that's a different story. But everybody deals with it. We're all visual creatures, and there is almost no advertising out there that isn't sexual.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think I like too. I mean, the tips and tricks, as you call them, were just practical. And I think the way the book was written, right? It's not really complex necessarily. I mean, and I also think it just calls a spade, right? It kind of like, hey, this is a challenge. So here's some things we're going to do as men to overcome it. And I think, I don't know, I was just really impressed too. And when you open up a safe space for guys to have those conversations, and like you mentioned, you remove the shame, right? And then you create power in that, forgiveness and by helping guys to work through that. So I remember that was really, really cool. We had a lot of really good discussions in that in those morning groups. And, I'm kind of curious your thoughts if we had a plug or an infomercial. I don't know. What do you think you would tell guys to get more guys to come out? I don't know if it's because it's in a church, guys are intimidated by it, or I don't know, anything you would offer up to guys to get them to kind of come in and check it out more regularly.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been an opportunity to really get to know a smaller group of guys, and it'd be great if there was a few more that would come regularly to open up those discussions. But this probably also, for me, probably stems a lot from pandemic related as well, in that ever since then, or ever since 2020, I haven't really been part of a men's group like at my church.
Yeah.
A lot of the men's groups like to get together on Saturday mornings, and that's, as I already said, time for my family. And so I kind of started out as that, like, hey, this is an opportunity to have a discussion with other men in a safe space, talking about something that I'll probably find interesting, regardless of which book we're reading, knowing that I need to do some self-study, and I need encouragement to read books.
Yeah.
And these are usually some sort of, I don't even know if I'd say self-help type of books, but they all have topics that are self-improving, and self-reflecting. So if you go through it, you are going to come out a better person, or you're just going to have a better perspective on somebody else's thoughts and discussion.
Yeah.
So I highly encourage anybody to come out. It is early. The first time you go, you think, what, I got to be there at 4:45, but
yeah,
that gives you time to have your discussion, go get a good beat down in, have coffee, and go to work.
Yeah.
All
I
the
had
time, hit 'em all.
I had a few times where I was going for a solo run, not intending to post, and then I would show up for the discussion, and then I would go for the run. And I think there are also a few times where, in my mind, I'm like, well, do I show up to a pre-run or do I go to the book study? And I think self-reflecting, it's easier to do more first F, right? It's easier to say, you know what, I'm going to just go run some more. And there's some second F opportunities there too, but I was never disappointed and really never surprised at how much I benefited from the discussion when I chose that over a pre-run. And it just shows like how much value we provide to each other. I think when my daughter was born this last November, I remember going to a few group discussions, and it's kind of like just a place to share about how I was doing, and be supported, but then also to be encouraged to prioritize your family, right, and do some of those things. So I've always loved that group, and shout out to Greek Freak. I think he convinced the church to keep the doors unlocking and all of that for us. But I want to get your thoughts on leadership, because I think you've done some really cool things at the district from a leadership perspective. But just kind of curious your leadership journey, in F3. What was that? What was your BQ like? Would love to hear that story. And then just what was your experience as a Psych Q? What sort of opportunities or experiences did you have there?
Sure. All right. So let's see. VQ was at the district in September of 2020. I hadn't even thought about leading a workout at that time. I'd technically been going for 7 months, and Greek texted me, and I immediately said, yeah, it'd be great, because the Murph is the best way to have a VQ. It's the easy entry. All you got to do is come up with a COT and the opening, and you're good to go. And so, I don't know, I've rarely considered myself a leader, just from self-reflection, and it provided an opportunity to lead that group, and it's really such an easy group to lead. Mm-hmm. Everybody is so supportive. We may, back to your comment of people thinking that we're all buddies, we do rag on each other almost regardless, right? But it's always fun-natured and, with a light heart. And so, let's see, after that, I didn't really lead too many times. I think, honestly, the next time I led might have been December, when I've done it twice, a Chick and Nick show workout. There's a number of guys in the packs here that are listeners of another podcast, competing one. It's not really competing.
Yeah, same on.
It's all goofy, but I had got this idea in my head that I'd do this workout where we'd quote the show and rename exercises. And so I did that one, and I've done that a couple times. We'll see if there's a reprise here in the fall. There should be.
Did you ever get them
the group keeps growing. What's up?
Did you ever get them to come out? I know you had tweeted at them one time.
We did. No, so Nick Baugh, a bunch of the packs know him through Creighton and through other avenues. They've said he's not coming out. He's in Lincoln. Matt Schick, he lives out in Charlotte, and he said there's a F3 workout right outside his neighborhood that he has no intention of going to.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe they'll come out sometime, but not anytime soon. But they, when we did the workout last fall, we posted the name-orama and copied them. And then the name-orama was in their show the next week.
Nice.
Because of the names and quotes that we said. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable.
What about the site Q role?
Site
Just
Q.
Site Q there at the district.
Let's see. So that then gets to be about probably March or April of last year. Greek Freak and Chicklets just talked and asked if Merch and I would do it to be site Qs at the district for two reasons. The district has a strict 2 site Qs required per year because it's the toughest MRF, and so that requires 2 site Qs.
Yeah.
And second, through that pandemic, or through the pandemic, Merch and I became friends at that time. Like, we knew each other as acquaintances and as neighbors, but we became friends by working out. We rode with each other. We carpooled like every day for that first probably 6 months, even after we came back. And so I don't know, we were like a 2-for-1 combo. And so they just thought that it would be a good match. And we completely agreed. Like, neither one of us, we don't live in the district, but we're neighbors and friends. And so it was a really good match. The district, the workouts lead themselves.
Yeah.
And so you don't have too much there, trying to keep everybody on the schedule, partnering up for the events. You do have Labor Day, Memorial Day events every year with triple MRFs. And then just encouraging people. I got a number of BQs probably the first couple months, and they definitely slow up over the winter. But yeah, kind of use that platform to introduce a number of folks to F3 and to trying to break down the MRF barrier that some people have.
Yeah.
I've been doing the MRF now for 2.5 years, and I still can't do more than 3 pull-ups. It's just probably not something that I can get to.
What do you think the barrier is? Is it just intimidation, or what do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. Physically, I have to lose 40 pounds and gain 20 of shoulder muscles, or what is it? I don't know. I look at Chicklets and I'm just like, it's ridiculous. I just can't do that.
Yeah. That's what everybody says when they look at Chicklets.
Absolutely.
We're still all mesmerized. I don't know. Someday he'll take the bodysuit off and reveal his true
Yep.
physique. What about just advice for other site Qs or maybe new guys coming into F3? Anything just over the years that you would say, hey, you gotta make sure you do this, or things that we should be aware of as PACs?
So, listening to other episodes, I thought about this one a little bit, and the word just kept popping up to me. And I think it's probably because it's maybe just a lot of my journey, and it's just persevere. Which, you might get a little bit intimidated by the workout. You might get a little intimidated by the second F or the third F, but persevere. Nothing happens overnight. Everything takes a little bit of time, and you've got to have at least enough mental fortitude to say, I'm not giving up today.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And that applies to, like you said, all 3 Fs. I think that's really good. And for F and Gs or guys that are, into their first few weeks or even several years, just persevere. One of the things I'm noticing too is guys have been in for, a year or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You got to persevere through that too, right? Because there's this temptation to look for something new or different, but it's persevering, being consistent. And I love that advice. What about for you? Anything that you're needing encouragement for or prayers for that guys could be asking you about or checking in with you on when they see you out there?
That one is a tough one. I never have much to add to that. In the matter of, my mind always goes blank. But prayers are for family. You know, what's happening this week is we homeschool our girls, and so they started school yesterday. They had about a month and a half off. You know, we do kind of year-round school so that they can participate in their sports in the fall and winter with a little bit less school requirement at the time. So they spread it out. So that's a big stressor on my wife, and my oldest is starting high school, so that increases the workload. You know, the other one is this morning, my middle daughter has a syndrome called Turner syndrome. And what that manifests itself as is she has a bicuspid aortic valve. And so this morning she had a CT scan, and at some point she's going to have heart surgery. So that would be something that could use prayer over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know a couple other guys that I feel like that's something that they're born with, right? It's like
so Turner syndrome is defined as part of her body only has one X. So when it comes to chromosomes, boys are XY chromosome and girls are XX chromosome. And so someone with Turner syndrome, part of their body only has one X on the chromosome. So I don't know. Hers is really a fairly mild case. She's shorter than average, shorter than normal height. Is one of the key indicators. Bicuspid aortic valve is a common occurrence as well. So we knew about their heart the day she was born, like they could hear a click. But we didn't find out about the Turner syndrome until she was, I think, just turned 10.
Okay.
And so her whole life she's had her heart checked every year. But then we started finding out some other information and ways to treat. You don't treat it. It's a syndrome. You're born with it. You kind of deal with it, and then you learn how best to manage.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be praying for you guys on that. I know that's, I think I know Samples always has his list of answered prayers. So we'll be praying before, and then we'll add the successful surgery to our list of answered prayers eventually here. So that's good.
Yeah, excellent.
Biff, I want to give you space. Anything else that maybe we didn't cover, or anything that you would want to share just about your story, or to encourage the guys as we're wrapping up here?
We touched on them all. I do like to share about losing weight. A number of folks have dealt with it. Beta and I have talked at length because he's had a similar struggle. I was the fat kid growing up, at least in my mind. You look back at photos and like, oh, I wasn't that big then. I did get later. So all that to say, no matter what your change is or what you need to change, you can do it. It's not easy. I mean, if you're gonna lose weight, you're gonna keep it off, then you're gonna have to make changes. I'm talking to you and you've shared your story many times, Plague. You had to make changes in your life to improve the areas that needed change. I mean, it sounds simple, but in reality, it's very difficult, and it's a lifelong struggle. Like I struggle with my weight still. Eating food that I know I like, but I have to eat it in moderation, or else I gain weight, and then you have to start the cycle again. So the Pogo 40 is still a struggle. Trying to break it down to maybe only be Pogo 15,
Yeah.
Pogo 20.
Yeah.
But that'd probably be the last thing. Is you can do it. Feel free to talk to me about how what my journey looked like, and when you see me around, and I'll tell you about it.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, that's a perfect way to kind of close out. I think, you know, that you've shared a lot of really great stuff, and I know we have a lot of guys that identify with your story, but man, I'm glad we've got the chance to cross paths and spend time getting to know each other. So this was great. And hopefully guys do reach out. Hopefully they feel, you know, the courage to reach out and say, hey, I've had the same issue. Tell me how to work through this, you know, so we've got that structure within the group, which I just love. Well, we'll do Namerama, and let's maybe do the Long Eye version. I'll start us off. Brandon Flehardy, 36, the plague. It doesn't work.
The plague. Sean Howell, 44, Biff.
Yes, I love it.
There it is.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time. This